Hey there. Welcome to the Biolabs, and back to the Surge. We are using the Severed Rotor Blade and Helvig's Kingfisher now that we've made our way through Central Production B. Nothing eventful happened, it was just a walk back to the train, so I cut it out so that you didn't have to watch me just sprinting away from enemies. We're in the Mantis set now.
Warning, this is a quarantine zone. Please remain in operations until all potential sources of danger have been eliminated.
Lady, there's danger everywhere. I think that if we decide to wait here, like you say, we'll be waiting quite a while.
I'm freaking out here, Doc. Security is everywhere, but there's no change in the workers. It's still chaos. If anything, it's getting worse. I'm gonna try and make a break for one of the loading bays. Hopefully I can get out. Best of luck, Doc.
Gee, thanks.
Please remain in operations while security lockdown is in effect.
Seems that this Dr. Chavez had some people helping her with whatever she's doing here. Largo mentioned a secret project of some kind. Who knows? Maybe we'll find out what that secret project is as we explore a little bit. For now, though, it's time to fight more robots, except for once they aren't going to be shaped like cartoon characters.
This sector remains in effect. Hazard response teams have been requested. Please remain in operations while the situation is being resolved. Designated hazard response squads, please report to Incident Commander for mission briefing.
For the record, the hazardous response squads did not make it to this area. There are no hazardous response squads here to speak of, unfortunately. Nobody'd help us. Although, that's not to say there might be, an absence of response squads of other kinds. Some sort of cleanup duty, but perhaps not the cleanup duty that's in our best interests. We're on the Mantis gear. The Mantis set reduces the cost of all consumables by 25%, I believe it is, which is really useful when it's paired with the Medivoltaic injector that I keep talking about in every single episode. I keep bringing it up because it's useful, okay? If you look in the top left, you can see that now all of my injectables take quite a bit less energy to use, and that in cooperation with the implants that build up energy when you hit enemies means that I can heal quite a bit more often than usual. Which is good, because it means that I have to use less of my implant slots on actual healing injectors. But then again, that's not too useful for me right now, because I only have 8 slots to work with, so there's not much wiggle room anyway. Oh my. Suddenly a jump scare. These laser vacuum cleaner robots are a pain in the fanny. They are quite annoying because their attacks will knock you down, but like they don't just stumble you, like they knock you flat on your face, and so they're a challenge because getting hit by them punishes you quite a bit. Still got the flare injector from the DLC, but it's not too extremely useful, actually. The flare... Did I say flare injector just now? I think I might have. The flare gun is not... Maybe I said flare launcher. Anyway, it's not super useful against non-human enemies, because robot enemies take reduced damage from fire. So it pretty much doesn't really help you all that much. One thing I appreciate about this area is that it incorporates some platforming, but not annoying platforming, you're about to see it. The games like this generally don't include a jump button because there's not much jumping to do, but the Surge The Surge lets you get some real distance with its jump, which allows the developers to do some interesting, like, little off-the-beaten-path platforming challenges, which is really interesting, because it's like, it's one of the first games in this general genre that I've seen do that. Also probably one of the last, because sometimes the platforming is quite finicky. Like, they do it, but I didn't say it was good, I just said it was interesting. Like that little jumping puzzle, that one's alright. But there's one later on that I will mention when we get to it it's kind of like, you know that Indiana Jones scene where it's like a leap of faith? Or maybe like in The Matrix when he has to jump between buildings. It's kind of like that. where the only guarantee that you will make it to the other side alive is how recently you have prayed to Robot Jesus. Jonah Gutenberg is Robot Jesus, if you follow what Don Hackett says. Enemies are starting to use the Scarab gear now as their go-to armor set. That's your indication that we're supposed to start wearing it. The Scarab gear, I think I mentioned this when it first started, when it first became available to us. The Scarab gear is one of the more heavy pieces of like medium equipment, so it is a good choice for first-time players. You know, people who want to have a lot of health. Because you can't tank hits in this game. This is not, it's like I was saying in the last episode, that's kind of why heavy armor is kind of useless, is because you can't tank hits. Like, every hit you take will stumble you, unless you're in the middle of a wind-up for a heavy attack, in which case you have some hyper armor, or whatever they're calling it these days. The problem, of course, is that, like, you get stumbled super often, so wearing heavy armor doesn't really help you. Like, it just gives you bigger damage resistance. But having bigger damage resistance doesn't really matter in this game, because you die in like 3 or 4 hits no matter what. However, one of the benefits of heavy armor like the Scarab gear is that you get bonus HP. So you can still tank hits even if they still stumble you, just by way of having an absolutely massive health bar. Helvig's Kingfisher is the best spear in the game, hands down. It does a lot of damage, especially when you get it, especially for when you get it in the game, and it's got a really, really high-speed moveset, so it's quite useful. Welcome to the Biolabs, everybody. It certainly has seen better days. A couple of people, I guess, in the thread have been asking, oh my, when exactly, like, about the timeline of events here, right? About, like, say, one of the chief questions early on in the thread, for those of you that aren't following it on Something Awful, is, or it was, why Abandoned Production looked so run down. Why it was full of, like, dried husks instead of just zombies. Well, in this area, you're gonna start to get your answer, because you might notice that the Biolabs is kind of the same way, where, like, boy, this place looks like it's been pretty poorly maintained. Who knows? Maybe we're gonna find out why. I hit his body so many times, and it didn't give me the body part for cutting it off. I think that bodies in this game take maybe a little bit too much punishment. Like, there really is no point to ever target the body. Like, unless you specifically need body parts to craft something, there is no reason to target the torso. It just takes too little damage, and I think it's not great.
You don't need to stand up, sir.
Uh-oh. Hi. So, the guard robot dogs are back. And they're, shall we say, quite dangerous. Also, this guy, have you ever seen those videos of like mountain goats climbing the side of like a dam or like another sheer wall surface? It's kind of like that. Like that guy seems to have landed with exactly the right footholds to hover in the air right up there. But yes, the guard robots are back, and they are more dangerous than ever. And look at that. I couldn't even kill him because the flare launcher was just too low down. And look at that. He chumped me. I've been chumped. Like, I mean, props to that guy, right? Props to that guy for being so forward-thinking in his tactics. Like, he led me to believe that he was glitched out and stuck up there, but as it turns out, he wasn't. He was just pretending. Anyway, guard robots, they're back. They have more health than they did in Central Production, and they also probably have a little bit more, like, stun resistance, probably. I don't know. That's what I would do if I was putting in, like, a upgraded version of an enemy. They're quite hardy, and not entirely in the good way. They kind of suck.
Chance to start afresh.
But they're manageable is the thing.
We're all in
They're manageable in their difficulty.
And together, we will.
Now we'll be putting it on a little later, but this segment is... oh, never mind. We're actually putting it on now. Okay. We're taking off the legs for the Mantis gear, and we're putting on the hazard legs because, like I mentioned in the video for Central Production B, you don't take damage from the toxic goop you're standing in when you're wearing the hazard legs. So, very useful early game equipment. After this, the hazard set kind of loses its effectiveness a little bit, but in the meantime, it's quite good. And boy, these enemies are really doling out some punishment here. Like, I'm taking quite a lot of damage. This area is hard. Like, I've seen a lot of complaints about this area because it's quite a spike in difficulty. What with the guard robots and the scarab gear enemies that have quite a bit of damage resistance. It's really tough, especially for like where you're at in the game, like damage and stats and health wise. It's really weird. You know, I talked in the last episode about how you can come out of the DLC quite overpowered if you do well in it, but afterwards, the difficulty curve catches up quite well. Like, it's really interesting how well they managed to integrate the DLC into the game's level curve. Like, the Surge is a hard game. It is a fair game, I would say, for the most part, but it is very difficult. So it's interesting that they managed to balance it so well.
Of integrity and initiative, and I have a small request to make.
Yes?
All right. Now listen. I'm sure you're smart enough to realize this area is under lockdown, quarantine, or whatever goddamn excuse they're using to get at me. I need to get out. We have to break this lockdown, and by we, I mean you.
Care to tell me who you are?
My name is Dr. Chavez. Melissa. Maybe you've heard of me. And no, I'm not lost. I work here. I think that's enough small talk. Now how about getting me out of here?
Good plan.
Good plan. It'd be nice if there were more specifics.
I'll put this as simply as possible. Enter the largest of the greenhouses. Look for the main console. It's connected to all the systems in this sector. I'm sure you can figure out the rest.
Ask nicely and we have a deal.
If I hadn't asked you nicely, you'd have known.
Would have been a lot more curse words.
I'm off.
Well, you know where to find me.
Okay, well, Largo didn't tell us that Dr. Chavez was a jerk. But, okay, cool. I suppose in that case, we'll start looking for her. We don't need the hazard leggings for now, so we'll just take those off. We'll be relying quite heavily on the Medivoltaic injector while I build up enough tech scrap to get my actual healing items back. It's really good. It's a really good backup. However, you might have noticed that the enemies in this area do a lot of damage, specifically the guard robots, which is why they get so many complaints, is because they do quite a bit more damage than anything else we've fought so far in the game. And so if you're unprepared or unknowledgeable about how much damage these monuments of human suffering do, well, you're gonna have a bad time. However, when you cut off the tail of one of these guys, they drop an ancillary core, and we are never going to have enough slots to have that many ancillary cores at once, so we can just destroy them and get extra tech scrap. So, like, all in all, these guys give a couple thousand tech scrap every time you kill one, so it's worth it to try and fight them. You know, you can run from them. I don't think they ever, well, maybe that's not entirely true, but for now, they don't force you to fight the guard robots, so, hey, if you don't want to fight them, you can just run on by.
Autopsy of number D70739, Clive Henderson. Male, 28. Back, neck, and skull have been opened. Cerebrum, cervical, and thoracic region of the spinal cord are exposed. All neural implants have been removed. This is the seventh victim discovered with a similar pathology, as the perpetrator's MO is evolving. The first victim's neural implants were removed with some precision, but in the more recent case...
Please notice, decontamination has been initiated. Hazard response squads have been deployed. For your own safety, avoid the following sectors: laboratories and the greenhouse facility.
Hey, thanks for interrupting that audio log. Oh my, that robot was, he's having a bad time. So hey, it's okay. The audio log was almost over anyway, actually. That was Sally. You may remember that Sally said she was a medical officer in the executive form, and well, there's an audio log for her to prove her case. That is an autopsy of one of the victims of the limb collecting gentleman who we have heard so much about so far. Again, at least it doesn't sound like Warren anymore, you know? Someone out there is harvesting body parts from Creo employees, but at least they're not just cutting them off for fun. That would be silly. Cutting people's limbs off for fun and profit. Well, maybe not profit, just for fun, but still. Downside of the Medivoltaic injector is that you can't use your energy that you gain to cut off limbs because you need them to heal. So it's kind of, that's the trade-off, right? Is like, since you have to use the energy so much for healing yourself whenever you take damage, you don't have much energy to spare for things like your drone or cutting limbs off or similar. Now remember, the old mystery about the limb harvesting gentleman. It was a decade ago, so the biolabs have been around for at least that long. Now, why someone would just leave that audio log laying around in the middle of a sewer area, I don't know, but who knows? Maybe they threw it in the garbage and it ended up there. That's a question that people ask a lot of video games. You know, why do people leave their personal thoughts lying around in the form of audio logs? I don't know. A lot of the time in this game, they do a pretty good job of justifying it because audio logs are generally found on corpses or in, like, a person's home or, like, their little hidey hole or whatever. But even the Surge is sometimes guilty of people, for some reason, recording their thoughts on their workplace and then just you know, leaving them out on a table in the middle of their workplace. Very strange. I do like that we're making our way through the labs here. I really appreciate that there's just like random miscellaneous science.
I'm getting worried about
Oh boy.
Ed. Ever since we started to implant team members with neural links, he's lost it. And yes, we checked and rechecked his implant. I'm worried he's having some kind of psychotic break. He's becoming totally divorced from reality. We've been in human testing for over a year. I mean, we're the development team and he's our software solutions lead. But he insists that his thoughts aren't his own, that someone's there with him. Creepy stuff, but nuts, right?
Huh. You may recall from the first area that Ed Nakana, one Ed Nakana employee at Creo, is the suspect of being the Liberator, the limb harvester. Apparently he was implanted with a neural chip that compelled him to do these things. I guess we can put 2 and 2 together on that one safely. But the real question now is,
Absolutely.
why?
As we like to say, at Creo, we're all family.
This interview with Jonah Gutenberg is very, very quiet, so I'm just going to shut up and I'm going to boost the volume of it so that you can hear it a little better. I'll see you next time when we track down Dr. Chavez.
But yes, I've definitely called many things over the years, and not all of them as nice as that.
Your honesty is humbling. The truth is, while politicians and scientists were fighting and trying to lay blame, you stepped forward with a solution.
Look, the fact of the matter is, something had to be done. Where does arguing get us? Nowhere.
Some divorce lawyers may disagree there.
True, but our problems are global. We needed to step up to the plate. I was fortunate in timing and position that I was able to do so, but I wasn't unique in the desire to make a change. This isn't about personal glory or fortune. Project Resolve is the largest endeavor of its kind. The best minds on the planet are all working together with Creo's crack team of scientists and developers to make sure that we can have not just a future, but a new beginning. A chance to start afresh. We're all in this together. And together, we will overcome.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today. We can only hope to live up